All right, we're going to finish chapter 6. So we talked about, I guess that was last week, we talked about inequalities in one triangle. So today we're going to talk about inequalities with two triangles, comparing certain sides. It's similar to what we did before, so it should be pretty straightforward. Okay? All right, so the hinge theorem says that if two sides of one triangle are congruent to two sides of another triangle, and the included angle of the first is greater than the included angle of the second, then we know that the third side of the first triangle has to be greater than the third side of the second triangle. Okay, so essentially what this is saying, right, is if I have this triangle is congruent to this triangle, okay, these two sides are congruent, these two sides are congruent, since we're just okay, I was gonna say, I don't think we are. All right, since this angle is bigger than this angle, that means this side AB has to be bigger than side DE. Make sense? Okay, no?
I don't know. Yeah, that makes sense.
Whatever has the bigger angle has to have the bigger side.
Please disregard that alarm.
Okay, so we know that AC is congruent to what side on the second triangle? DF. We also know that BC is congruent to what side? EF or FE. Excuse me. Then we know that the measure of angle C is greater than the measure of angle F. Therefore, side AB must be greater than side DE. Right? So, essentially, this is the bigger side. This has to be the smaller side.
When we do like the first two ones, do they have to be in that order? Can you switch them?
Like, what do you mean?
Like if it's AC, do you have to do a DF? Or
Like, could you put FD?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, anytime you name a side, remember you can reverse those two variables. Okay, DF or FD is okay. Fair enough? Okay, let's look at a few examples. So, example 1, right? We do have two sides congruent. Side AB is congruent to DF. And then side CB is congruent to FE. So, all that's going to tell us is this side, AC, has to be what? Bigger than DE. Okay? Anybody have thoughts on example 2? Somebody tell me first, what sides are congruent here? JK is congruent to JM, yes? Congruent to itself, yes. JL is congruent to itself. So we do have triangles with two sides congruent. So then I just compare, right, the sides opposite the biggest angle. Side what? KL has to be greater than LM. Okay? Now, we are going to get into some that want you to solve, right, which is happening on example 3. Okay, so again, it's given us two sets of sides that are parallel. So I'm going to find the bigger side. Which one's the bigger side?
The X times 4.
Yes, X. I really think it's supposed to say plus. It's kind of hard to see. So X plus 4 is my bigger side. So we're going to say X plus 4 has to be greater than what? 15. Okay, and then I have one step to solve for X, which is to subtract 4. So we know possible values for X would be anything that's greater than 11. Okay? Now, on example 4, what do I do if they only gave me one pair of sides that are congruent?
The middle's congruent.
Middle is congruent, right? Shared side. Goodness.
I'm very distracted right now.
I bet you can make it through. I believe in you. Okay, so that middle is congruent. Find the biggest angle. That'll give me the biggest side. What would that be?
65.
So my biggest side, 5x minus 8. And I set that greater than the smaller side, which is 30. Go ahead and solve. Excuse me. Okay, we get x greater than what?
7 point something.
I agree. Take a guess.
7.3.
Not a bad guess. 7.6.
Just double.
Okay. All right. Are we okay with this?
Wow. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's look at the back page. Now, essentially, the back page is the same thing, right? The hinge theorem converse just tells you the opposite, right? So instead of giving you two angles, what are they giving you? The two sides. So what do you think that's going to tell us then? Yeah, one angle is going to be bigger than the other, okay? So let's name like we did before. AC is congruent to what? FD or DF. What is BC congruent to? EF. And since we know side AB is greater than side DE, then what else do we know? Good. Greater than the measure of angle F. Okay? So same idea as finding sides, works when we find angles. Okay? So, now, these are a little trickier, right? Because they're not marked with your lines. So you might do that just to help you know which ones you don't really need. So like 15 is congruent to 15. 25 is congruent to 25. Okay? So then I identify the longer side. What's the longer side here? 35 or AB, which points me to angle C. So the measure of angle C has to be greater than what? Measure of angle F. Remember to put that measure symbol on both of those.
I get caught it wrong if we don't.
Because we're referring to a value, not just the angle itself. Okay? All right. Example 2. Anybody want to tell me on example 2?
Middle itself.
Good. Shared side should always be congruent. Okay? Now, you're going to have to name these, bless you, you're going to have to name these a little different because I can't call it angle L, agree?
Yeah.
Because angle L could be on either side, the top or the bottom. So how do I name the bigger angle? Which one is the bigger one? Opposite what side?
JM.
Opposite 22.5. Go for it. You're right.
Oh, JL?
I did JM.
Uh,
That's what I said.
nope. How many points do I have to use? JLM. Good. So JLM, remember if we're not using just one, you start, go to the angle, and then go away. So JLM has to be greater than what? JLK. Measure of angle JLK. Good. Now, could you have said KLJ or MLJ? Yes. As long as the angle you're referring to is in the middle, then you're in the right place. Okay? All right, let's look at a couple examples of ones to solve, and then we'll be ready to go today. Okay? What thing do we always label first that's not given to us? Middle or shared side. Okay? Bigger side length here is what? 9.1. So I'm starting with angle measure of 70. Has to be greater than 2x minus 5. Okay? All right, Caden, what's my first step to solve? Add 5. So I get 75 is greater than 2x. What's my last step? Divide by 2. Okay. So 37.5 is greater than x. Really, we should say x has to be less than 37.5.
Will you take the other way though?
I will. You should just be in the habit, though, when we write inequality, to always put your variable first. Okay, anybody want to take the last one for me?
I got you, man.
Okay, let's go.
6.3, shared side,
Good.
and then 6.3 is the greater, so 60 is greater than x plus 5,
Perfect.
and then you do minus 5, plus 55 equals is 55 is greater than x or
Good.
x less than 55.
Very good. Okay, not too bad for today. Do we feel like, did you guys feel okay with the stuff that we went back over yesterday?
Yeah.
Most of that? I mean, I think for our quiz, it's mostly pretty simple stuff. I think we'll be okay with that. Okay. All right. So today we're on page 335.
Someone give me a shake. I got you. Only good boys. That's not easy to get you both. Hi, Turner. Did the team not work? Never